I'm Corbitt with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, October the 20th, brought to you in part by Macrocin by Bimeda. Pay for what you need, not for what you don't need. And keep your cash and don't fool around with rebates, guys. And you get the same results you get with most any tulathromycin injection. For more information, go to macrocin.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards in Carthage, Missouri. Another big sale for their regular Monday feeder cattle auction. They're going to have 6,500 head, and the sale is going to start at 6 o'clock here today on Monday. They got a good selection of all classes, a lot of loads of yearlings like they always do, and a lot of lightweight calves too if you're interested in something like that. Don't forget, today is the day you need to have your calves weaned if you're going to have them 45 days weaned by the value-added sale on December the 4th. So take note of that, guys. And they're only taking them 45 to 60 days weaned, so you got to get them done if you're going to get them done and in that sale. Also, special cow sale at Joplin Regional Stockyards on Thursday, November the 6th. Starts at 4:30 in the afternoon. You can view and bid all of Joplin's sales at DVAuction.com. Watch what you say, and that goes for the Trump administration. I tell you what, I've never seen an administration that takes so little heed in what they say about the cattle and the beef markets. Now, it was only a couple months ago where we saw the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, making statements about opening or not opening the border, and your futures, cattle futures, are just whipsawing one way and then the next, depending on what she said, when she could just as easily have waited another day to say what she said, and we would have had a long weekend for that to settle before it hit the futures there. But late last week, we saw Trump say that he was working his magic to try to get beef prices lower. All of a sudden, he's worried about beef prices, and I don't know why. But he said he worked his magic and he's going to make the beef prices go down. Well, what does he think that's going to do to the cattle futures? Evidently, he didn't think about what it was going to do to the cattle futures. They were sharply lower on Friday, and all just for that. We're right in the mode of the highest cattle prices we've ever had in the history of the world. Maybe that's got something to do with beef prices. You know, why are we so high on cattle? Because supplies are tighter than they've been in over 70 years. Okay, why did they get so low? Because we had a series of droughts in all your major production areas. Plus, there's such a demand for land. People are wanting to, they'd rather hunt on the land or play on the land than produce things on the land. So it's making it tougher to raise cattle, and we didn't have prices that would pay you to raise cattle for a long time. So prices had to get better. Now they're getting better. But the price for cattle and the price of beef and your mounted imported beef and basically all your supplies and your prices of the product going into beef don't really have a whole lot to do with the price of retail beef. They don't have a good correlation. Our prices are box beef cutout values have been down here a lot here for the last several weeks. We haven't seen your prices in your stores for beef on a retail level or food service go down much, and that's not the way it really works. I tell you what, the prices in your retail counters and food service for beef are just as much as they think they can charge, and the consumers still buy it. That's the way they do it. Okay, your box beef cutout values. That's not a negotiated trade. Your packers basically put out a price list or a menu of all the cuts that they have, and your wholesalers buy what they want and as much of it as they want, depending on what the price levels are. So that's the way that deal goes. And our highest prices of beef course, boxed beef and at retail level was during the pandemic. And cattle weren't all that high then, and they didn't get higher during the pandemic, even though we saw prices of beef soar. And during the pandemic, when we saw those all-time high prices for beef, we were still getting plenty of cattle in from Mexico, and we were still getting plenty of beef in from Brazil and other places that we import beef from. So it doesn't have a lot to do with one or the other. But apparently we're going to start making it easier for Argentina to send us their beef, and I guess pick up some of the slack from us not getting much beef from Brazil now, since the tariffs got so high, because Trump's not happy with Brazil right now and their leadership over there. But he popped off about that, you know, and I love Trump. I'm still a big Trump supporter. I'm not down on him just because of this. I see a lot of people that say they're conservatives, and this one thing now they're just totally down on Trump, and they can't believe, you know, he goes on about this, you know. Well, the big thing about it is Trump normally does what he says he's going to do, so that's why we saw such a knee-jerk reaction from him saying that. Can you imagine if Biden slurred or stuttered or mumbled something about beef, and, you know, nobody would even pay any attention to what he'd said. But Trump normally does what he says he's going to do, so we figure there's something coming, but it shouldn't hurt the cattle market. But your cattle futures, and they're very sensitive, and I wish this administration would learn how sensitive the cattle futures are. Anything can tip it, and it's such a shallow market compared to other publicly traded markets out there. Just anything can affect it in a big way, and we hate it that it happened here, but this too will pass, and it'll be all okay after it washes over a little bit. And even if Argentina starts sending us more beef, it's not going to affect our cattle market that much in the whole scheme of things. So we'll just have to give it some time to wash over there. But it was quite a tumultuous day, and I sure hate when we see anything from the government, any type of a government program, or especially, you know, some government official makes a comment and it affects the market in a lot way, because cattle markets are really one of the last real pure, unadulterated markets that react, you know, pretty true to fundamentals. And if we didn't have CME cattle futures, they would be completely pure. And the cattle futures are frustrating because this industry has become a slave to those cattle futures. But we didn't see your cash markets. I mean, your calves and your feeder cattle, and especially your fat cattle, you know, react negatively to what Trump said. It was just your futures. But the futures in time, if they keep going down, will affect it. But they may bounce right back too. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But I tell you what, it was pretty wild in your markets late last week and over the weekend. I was at a wild sale in South Texas, El Campo Livestock Exchange in El Campo, Texas. That's way down there, guys. It's south of I-10, about halfway between San Antonio and Houston, but south of I-10, and it's dry in that area, guys. But you could not tell it from the big special they had. They called it the Pearl of the Prairie replacement special there. They had bred heifers, had some open heifers. They had young pairs there, and man, was it wild. And they were selling their kind of cattle. Most all the cattle had a percentage of Bramer in them. Either Brangus or Simbra or Brayfords are the most popular. Bramer Hereford cross. Those tiger stripes, they're the most popular by far, but those are the kind of cattle that were selling at higher prices than they get for them in the Sand Hills of Nebraska, guys. And those cattle people up there would think they would went to some kind of exotic zoo if they had been in El Campo on Saturday. But I tell you what, the guys that wanted them, they wanted them. And like I said, it's dry in that area. It's starting to get dry in several areas here this fall. But man, the prices, you know, they had a bull sale there. They had about 80 bulls. And, you know, you normally at a consignment type sale, you don't see big prices like you do in production sales of purebred outfits. But they sold bulls, most of them Charolais bulls, from $7,500 to $10,000 a head. That was very surprising for me. And then they got started with the bred heifers. They sold bred heifers, all crossbreds, and like I said, some of them having more Bramer in them than others. So you know, some of them had humps and spots all over them, guys. And the bulk of them bring from $4,900 to $5,800 per head. Wow! And then they had heifer pairs and young pairs, just 3 to 4 year old young cows there, pairs. Same kind of cattle, guys, bringing $5,300 to $7,000 per pair, and little bitty calves. It was just unbelievable, that sale. I was there taking bids for DVAuction. It was hot online. A lot of people online trying to get in and buy some. A lot of people in the barn trying to buy some, and it seemed like money was no object. I accused Colt Adams there, the auctioneer, of having one lot of $50 bills. He was auctioning them off for $100. But it was just that wild, guys. And I love the auction method of selling cattle. And I tell you, when supplies are tight and but they got them there, and everybody wants them, it's just unbelievable what can happen. But let's talk about your board for last week on your cattle futures. October live cattle, Monday was up 210, Tuesday up $1.25, Wednesday up 35 cents, Thursday up 177, and then Friday, that big reaction to Trump's talk about lowering the beef price, down 370. October contracts ended the week at 240.25, up 178 still for the week. But that brings about a negative basis for your cattle sellers, and our cash fed cattle price was up a bunch, but it's still a negative basis. But December live cattle contracts 241.82, down 73 cents there for the week. Let's talk about October feeder cattle. It was even more volatile, not on Monday. Monday was unchanged, which is odd. Tuesday was up 467, Wednesday down 45 cents, Thursday down a nickel, and then Friday down 772. Some of them touched down the limit there. I don't think any of them closed down the limit. But October feeder cattle ended the trade for the week at 371.95. That was down 355 for the week. November ended the week at 371.70, down 420 for the week. Your grains, December new crop corn ended the week at 422.5. That was up 9.5 cents a bushel. November beans ended at 1019.5, up 12 3/4. Hard red winter wheat for December ended the week at 491.5, up 8.5 cents a bushel. Fat cattle trade through Thursday, we'd sold 19,650 head of cattle in your major negotiated trade areas there, and it was quite a bit better. But we were kind of expecting it to be even more better, you know. A lot of you, I told you on the feeder flash, we thought we could gain $8 or $10 last week. We gained a bunch, but we did not gain that much on a live basis. And it was because, you know, we had a few guys here and there start weakening, and the weak sisters sold out, and then pretty soon everybody had to sell out there. That's just the way it goes. It's unbelievable how your cattle feeders, even the few negotiated sellers we have, cannot get their heads together to manage the trade. Your live prices, fat steers and heifers range from $235 to $241. That was $6 to $7 higher on a price range. Weighted average on live steers $239.73 up through Thursday. Dress sales $370 to $378, $10 to $12 higher than the previous week. and dressed steers weighted average at 373.23 on Fridays when the bulk of the trade happened, and they sold a lot of cattle on Friday. And like I say, market was still higher, but most everybody was kind of disappointed, thinking that they could have gained more ground, and they could have if everybody would have gotten together there. Packers desperately needed cattle. Iowa sold 16,300 head, negotiated on Friday, 29,700 for the week. Live price on Friday in Iowa, 238 to mostly 240, $5 higher. Dress trade was $10 higher, 372 with a few up to 374. Nebraska sold 11,900 confirmed on Friday, 17,500 for the week. Live price 240 to 241 and dress price at 372. Kansas had brisk sales on Friday, 9,300 head. We don't see that many cattle sell negotiated in Kansas ever anymore. Used to sell 100,000 a week, but we don't sell 10,000 a week anymore. But 9,300 negotiated, 9,800 for the week. Live price in Kansas was mostly 240, but ranged from 238 to 240 and a half. Texas sold 4,500. That's a big movement for them. 4,600 for the week, and the only price in Texas at 240, and that's $5 higher. Cattle are bringing the same everywhere, just like they should. Box beef cutout values were higher, but not much. Your choice weighted average on all of your choice cuts last week was $365.54, up 29 cents compared to the previous week's weighted average. And by late Friday, the choice cuts were at $366.77 on Friday afternoon. That was another $1.20 higher than your weighted average. We're just getting to the time of the year where we're supposed to see a seasonal rally here. If that little, short statement by Trump doesn't make it go south. But your weighted average on all your select cuts last week, $349.73, up $317. And by Friday afternoon, that quote was at $350.27, $1.34 higher than the weighted average. Choice select spread on the weighted average was $15.81, and all that based on 760 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings, which is pretty decent movement for the week. Your slaughter picked up quite a bit. It's still not back up to normal, but picked up quite a bit from recent weeks. Estimated cattle slaughter last week was 567,000. That was 20,000 more than the previous week, but still 40,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. If you're looking for fancy calves, guys, and I know we're in the calf run, but those fancy ranch calves from the northern plains, Faith Livestock Auction in Faith, South Dakota is going to have 10,000 head on Monday here. Big calf and yearling special, but mostly calves, guys. They're going to have a lot of big strings of cattle. The Carmichael cattle will be the biggest consignor. They've got 1,400 head in there, and they've got many consignments of over 200 head each. So you could get a lot of cattle put together with very few sources, and probably get your needs filled with a single source there, and that sure cuts down on your health problems and things, guys. Going to have a lot of heifers, replacement quality heifers. Most of them be black hided. They've got a lot of F1 black baldy heifers that will receive some interest for replacements there, guys. But you can view and bid that sale at Faith, South Dakota on DVAuction.com. It's going to be 8 o'clock start on that sale too. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, brought to you by Specialty Risk Insurance. They are working to protect your livelihood. Your real-time index ended the week from DVAuction there based on an 800-pound cash auction steer at $374.61. That was up $7.24 for the week. That's a big gain there, guys. Latest CME cash feeder cattle index was 376.51. Your cash feeders and your auctions last week, the trend was mostly $6 to $12 higher, but tons of instances of $20 higher, $30 higher, and it was mostly on the fancier calves and the big strings of them. Saw instances of as much as $50 higher on lightweight calves. Of course, the lightweight calves, 3 and 4 weight calves, can bring up and over $6 a pound. So, 50 cents is not all that much when you take that into consideration. But I tell you what, sales were good. We're not lower on Friday and Saturday, despite your board, despite what Trump said there. But they were still very, very good, and a lot of all-time highs there. Big sale. I give you those Northern Plains calf markets all the time. I thought a good sale to give you to test the market would be out of Lanesboro Sales Commission in Lanesboro, Minnesota. They had a couple thousand there for their special, and it was not dairy influenced cattle for this special. It was just all good colored cattle, like they call them, or beef cattle. But Lanesboro was your Superior Steel Sales, home of Superior Standard livestock handling equipment. Stick out sale of the day. Look at this automated market report through Cattle Market Central, and you see your best tested weights, which was most of the steers. 214 head of the 4-weight steer calves averaged 455 with a weighted average price of 497.06. 203 head of the 5-weight steers averaged 541 at 434.02. 139 head of 6-weight steers averaged 662 at 383.59. 132 head of 7-weight steers averaged 754 at 375.44. 162 head of 8-weight steers averaged 842 at 367.76. And 348 head of 9-weight feeder steers in Lanesboro, Minnesota averaged 930 with a weighted average price of 369.29. Look at the heifers. There were 128 heifers in the 4-weight category. They averaged 443, weighted average price 476.73, and 105 head of 5-weight heifers averaged 551 at 393.44. The most impressive quote I saw come out of Lanesboro, get a handle on this. They had 50 steer calves, just peewees, weighed 369 and bring $6.44 a pound. Wow. They also had 240 head of big steers weighed 931, bring 371.75. So good sale there at Lanesboro, Minnesota. Some individual quotes, and I'll give you the trends out of those Friday or Saturday just to give you an idea. St. Ange Livestock in St. Ange, South Dakota had about 5,000 head there. Market was very uneven. They had some sharply higher prices in some classes and weight groups, and had others that were sharply lower than the impressive sale they had the previous week. They sold 53 steers, weighed 500 pounds on the dot at 547.50. Crawford Livestock Market in Crawford, Nebraska had 5,250 head. Market was unevenly steady there, and the most impressive quote I saw out of Crawford on Friday was 72 steers, weighed 646 at 460. But Fort Pierre had 7,000 head, big sale there. Their market was steady to $10 higher, and spots $30 higher. Had a lot of their best consigners come in there. Saw an impressive quote. It was your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day. It was 84 steers, weighed 601 at 491, or $2,951 per head. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.